of financial control. And also that breeds things like anxiety, because you're constantly wondering, will I have enough money? Will I be able to meet these commitments, and so on? So how do we get financial control? Well, here's one simple way to think about your money. If you're a parent, say a parent of a teenager, what type of parent are you? Are you the type of parent that will allow your children to go at any point in time, to go at any place, spend as much time as they want, do whatever they feel like, as long as when they come back, they tell you, oh, I'm home? Or are you the type of parent where your child comes to you and says, I would like to go out with my friends? And you ask, where are you going? Who's going to be there? What are you going to do? And whatever you're going to do, you have to get back home by this time. Are you that type of parent? Most Asians are. Well, then treat your money like that then. Before it leaves your purse or your wallet, where is it going? What will it be used for? And if you ask those questions beforehand, you're starting to get some sort of control over your money. It's not a case where it goes and you keep track of your expenses, because that is just recording where your money has gone, if you can keep track of it. But financial control has to do with knowing how much money comes in every month and deciding beforehand how much and where will it go in each category. That category such as paying for utilities, saving for a rainy day, saving for that mortgage, paying school fees, buying school clothes, things that come around perhaps once a year. Deciding every month how much you will put aside for those annual expenses, for example. You'll find when you get to the stage where you have financial control, you're a lot less anxious about those monthly bills, those annual bills, those things that come around every 3, 4, 5 months, because you're controlling your money to the extent that every month you're making provisions for those monthly, semi-annually, and annually expenses. The whole goal of financial control, though, is to reach the stage where you know how much money is coming in, and you control your spending to the extent that there's some left over every month after you meet all of your commitments, whether they be monthly, annually, and so on. Later on, you'll see why that becomes important, why you have to be in a situation where you spend less money than you earn. Now, if you want, afterwards, you can contact me. I'll give you my email address. We actually have a spreadsheet that you can use to allow you to note all your expenses, even the annual ones, and start to be able to budget. I've resisted using that word for as long as possible, because when people hear a budget, they imagine different things. For a lot of people, budgeting means recording expenses. You keep track of all your receipts, and at the end of the month, you write down how much money you spent in groceries, how much money you spent in water, electricity, and so on. That is expense tracking. Budgeting has to do with financial control. A finite amount of money you have at your disposal, you decide how much goes for all of your responsibilities. And once you reach that stage where the money going out is less than the money coming in, you now can go on to another stage of financial planning. Now, you might be saying, I have debts, so I can't possibly have any money left over at the end of the month. This is true. So even in financial control, when it comes to prioritizing debts and paying off debts, there are ways you can pay off your debts smarter and faster than other people might be able to do. So financial control takes into consideration having a debt servicing responsibility to take care of as well. You might be saying, I work for myself, therefore there's not the same amount of money coming in every coming in every month. However, the light bill is roughly the same, the water bill is roughly the same, the rent is the same, the mortgage is the same. How do I possibly budget or control my money in those situations? It is still possible, but that is something beyond the scope of this discussion. Because as I said again, it depends on your particular circumstance. But just know that even if you're self-employed or your income varies from month to month, or you have debts to deal with, financial control is still possible. It might take you a little bit longer to reach the stage where you have money left over for other things, but at least you'll be on a path to working toward it. Now, the next stage of financial planning has to do with financial protection. This is perhaps something that most Barbadians are familiar with. I already mentioned protection. It has to do with the threats that we all face that can stop us from reaching our particular goals, enjoying our present life, and caring for our loved ones. Now, what are these threats and how can we visualize them? Well, let's think about a house for a minute, the place where you live. A house, your dwelling place, provides two basic functions. It provides you protection from threats, and it's supposed to provide you with a comfortable living space. If you think about it, the threats to your house, your physical house, fall into four basic categories. And those four categories are the same categories of financial threat that we all face. So think about it, a house in Barbados, what threats does it have? What can destroy it or undermine it? Hurricanes, things that will happen. The longer we go without having a hurricane, only increases the likelihood of having one sooner. So in terms of things that will happen, hurricanes will hit houses in Barbados sooner or later. So category number one, things that will happen. Category number two, what else can damage a house? Things that may happen. Well, think about flooding. You may or may not suffer a flood that damages your house. Enough waterfalls in short enough space of time, and you have flooding, and that can threaten your house. What else can threaten your house? Well, earthquakes do. Earthquakes tend to damage or undermine the foundation of a house. So that's category number three. Number one, things that will happen. Number two, things that may happen. Number three, things that damage the foundation. Number four, what else can damage your house? You can be very, very careful, do all the right things. You can still get a call at work one day saying your house is on fire because the next door neighbor house caught on fire and then caused burning at your house. So category number four, the actions of other people can threaten the existence of your physical house in which you live. So those four, if you're paying attention, those four threats, things that will happen, things that may happen, things that threaten the foundation or damage the foundation, and things that are caused by the actions of other people. So by now you're thinking about your financial house and what falls into these categories. Category number one, things that will happen, you will die. If you die at 99 years old, well, that is tragic, the loss of life always is. If you die at 30 with two small children under the age of 5, that can be really catastrophic for them. So when you think about protection, you think about protecting your family or those who depend on you against things that will happen. You will die. What's the next category? Things that may happen. You may develop a critical illness. or have a major medical situation that needs to be taken care of. In those situations, you need protection against those things because they may very well happen. Oftentimes, the difference between dying now and recovering to carry on living is the access to care. And financial protection, a good financial protection plan will allow you to have access to care in the event of one of those things happening. The things that may happen, developing a major medical condition or a critical illness. Category number 3, things that damage the foundation. If you think about it, all your financial goals, but your current lifestyle, your future lifestyle, depends on the money that you earn. That is the foundation of every financial house. It is this money that pays your bills, sends your children to school, allows you to prepare for a time when you're no longer working full time, and to be able to have an estate to give away when that time comes. So, protection against being unable to work because of an illness or some disability, either temporary or long term. And this becomes critical. Let's mention the NS, for example. Not mention NS pensions. We're going to cover retirement planning and funding for that in another session. But if you work for more than $48.80 per month, all of that excess money is not insured. Therefore, if you're off work for a length of time because of an illness or an accident, NS will provide you with some income, but only up to that particular limit. And it is a human condition that the more we earn, the more we tend to spend. So if your salary is higher than that, you might have obligations to be met that can't be met if you're unable to work because of some accident or some illness. So financial protection also takes care of protecting your income against your disability. And by disability, we don't mean being in a wheelchair or being paralyzed. Disability just means being unable to work. You may know that NS will pay you sickness benefits for up to 6 months. However, if you're permanently disabled, that can't be determined until a year has gone by. An interesting fact is, if you are so seriously injured or ill that you're off work for 6 months, normally in month number 7, you don't have to go back to work. Therefore, you could be off work for over a year if it lasted for 6 months in the first place. And those month number 7 and so on, there will be no income. So it makes sense to protect your income personally so that even if MS pays you some replacement, some fraction of a replacement in your replacement of your income, you can also take care of the rest. So that's what threatens the foundation, what threatens your income, and you need to protect yourself against it. Now, actions of other people. We said we go to work for an income if we work for an employer. There may be situations where we have to leave that particular place of employment because we're asked to leave, or we leave that place because it's no longer a place that we wish to work. Those are situations that affect your financial life because all of a sudden there's no income coming in. It's kind of hard to budget when there's zero money to budget with. Things like divorce also will affect your finances. If you're married, you hit a light switch and you and your spouse benefit from that light switch together. That the light that comes from that light. If you're no longer under the same roof, in the same room, the light switch still has to be hit, but only one person benefits now. Only one person has that bill to foot, or is no longer sharing the responsibility. So there's no financial product to protect you against things like divorce or having to leave your job. But a good financial plan will still take those things into consideration and allow you to have emergency funds on hand in case of prolonged unemployment, or other situations that are caused by other people, that are influenced in some form or fashion by other people. So that's financial protection. Let's move on quickly. I have a few more minutes just to talk about these other things. And let's talk about financial growth. So briefly, remember we said up front on point number 2, when it comes to financial control, we want to reach a stage where the money comes in is greater than the money that goes out. That surplus we need to put to work, not save. And the reason why I said that, because you can't save money effectively because inflation will make sure you can't. So you need to reach a stage where you have money left over that you can put to work. So while you're going to work, this money is also going to work so that your money can grow. Because the time will come when you're not working. But you still need to eat, you still need a roof over your head, you still need medical care. And we call that retirement. I prefer to say no longer working full time. An increasing number of my clients say they're not going to just sit at home and do nothing when that time comes. They're going to find something useful to do, and that something useful might actually generate some income. But it won't be enough on its own, which means while you're working, you need to have some money to put to work to grow, right? Financial growth. But we'll cover much more about that when it comes to retirement planning and how do we fund our life after full-time work. And the last stage is financial enjoyment. Of course, you're supposed to enjoy life all the way through your working life, but a lot of people look forward to the time when they don't have to go to work every single day to really enjoy life. Now, money is good for 3 things: funding your current lifestyle, putting it to work so it can grow, and giving it away. Now, we're going to cover this giving away money under estate planning in a few weeks from now. Because remember, as the saying goes, you can't take it with you. So likely, if you've amassed some sort of wealth, you will want to give it away when that time comes. Now, that time might come when at your death, right? But it might be a situation where you have to have someone taking care of your wealth even while you're still breathing. But we'll cover that again on the estate planning. So financial enjoyment, let's briefly refers to when it comes to estate planning. Now, in Barbados since the 1970s or early 80s, there has been no estate taxes. So if you leave money or property to someone else, they don't have to pay the state anything before they inherit it. However, there are always expenses associating with administering a person's estate. So your financial plan is going to consider the financial implications of your will, your trust, whatever estate matters you put in place, so that when the time comes, the right amount of money in the right person's hands, so that your wishes can be carried out. So when it comes to estate planning, then, sorry, it's not estate planning. Here are the 5 areas that we just talked about when it comes to personal financial plan. Financial goals, financial control, financial protection, financial growth, and financial enjoyment. So at this point, I think we have a section here where we can entertain some questions. We'll have questions after Roger is finished as well, but if there are any questions you have burning based on what I've discussed so far, feel free.
Yes, hi Wayne. Yes, so we have 2 questions here for you. The first question is, how do you become disciplined enough to control your money?
Well, I can just tell you what some of my clients have done. So some of them have opened varying accounts in varying places, and then have their payroll deposit money into each one of those accounts. Some of those accounts, some of my self-employed clients, is to pay her taxes. So, and then another account is for her annual travel. So because she doesn't see the money, it never hits her account. It goes to where it needs to go to, and she knows where to find it when the time comes. Now you might be saying, if you know where your money is, you can always go and get it. So here's what some other clients have done. They've opened their credit union accounts and not gotten the card. So the only way they can get money is to go to the credit union, stand in line, and they don't stand in lines. So the money's there, but they've made it uncomfortable enough for themselves that they won't go after it. But control, again, is also a personal thing. So it all depends on the individual. For example, speaking to a client the other day, and they mentioned impulse buying. So then I spent a little time trying to figure out what were the triggers for this impulse buying. Because if we can figure out what the triggers are, perhaps we can avoid them or minimize them so that you will have this impulse buying. So your planner can normally work with you to try to figure out a strategy that will work for you, that allows you to be comfortable and also to have some discipline when it comes to your money.
Okay, thank you. Our second question is, how does someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, I think you slightly addressed this, how does someone who lives paycheck to paycheck gain financial control?
Right. So financial control can be possible even if you live paycheck to paycheck. You know where your money is going. It just so happens your expenses equals your income. So that's why no money is left over at the end of the month. But here's a question for you. Suppose your boss says to you, well, things are tough. I need to reduce your salary by $100 a month. Most of us will keep the job and make the adjustment in some form or fashion. So one things you can do is don't wait for your boss to tell you that. Give yourself the $100 pay cut. At the end of the year, you could have $1,000 saved. Chances are you won't save any money in January. It's a very, very long month. And you probably won't save any money in December either because you go shopping. So let's say 10 months, you manage to save that $100. But sometimes it has to do with just sitting down and recording how you spend your money, looking at it and say, is this good enough or can I do better?
All right. Thank you so much, Wayne, for your insightful presentation. I know that it was fruitful and we will have something to take away. So thank you so much. Thank you. I am now ready to introduce our next presenter, Mr. Roderick Nurse. Roderick Nurse joined Sagicor in 2008 and works as an insurance sales advisor. He transitioned to the financial services sector, having spent approximately 20 years in the information technology arena and the latter 5 years as a small business owner. He is a qualified financial services specialist and is the chairman of the BARAIFA Institute. He holds the designation of LUTCF, which is the Life Underwriting Training Council Fellow, FSS, Financial Services Specialist, and CLU, Chartered Life Underwriter. Throughout his tenure, he has served on the board of directors of BARAIFA, its educational committee, and was also chairman of the Bylaws and Legislation Committee. Outside of work, he is the vice president of the BFFRA, which is the Barbadian Families and Friends Relocation Association, with the responsibility for training and development. Some of the projects include the Care of the Elderly and Caregiver Community Program, Managing Money for Secondary School Teens, and the Primary School Stationary Aid Program. In addition, he volunteers with Parados as facilitator of the financial planning module for their parenting class, as well as serves on its board of directors. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Roderick Nurse.
Good evening. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to be looking at the business side of financial planning. I'm going to share my screen. And as I do that, I can alert you early, there's going to be one interruption. And And that is because I will need to go to YouTube to get a video that I need. But when that time comes, we will get there. All right, just one thing, just let me clear some of the stuff out the way here. And that is one of the nice things about Zoom and sharing. So let's define these, what I term to be the scope of work. This evening, I want to look at 8 key areas of financial planning as it applies to the micro and family-owned businesses. So we'll confine it to that. I am very conscious as well that we are in a time where a number of people would have been displaced from work and have started and has embarked on external work, whether it is a side job. Many people have started their own business, and in starting a business in an environment like this, it can be a little bit of a challenge. I too, many years ago, being a business owner, met the recession back in 2000 and 2008, and indeed, it really wasn't an easy time. So to start business at this point in time, I know it will be a challenge, and we will touch on some of the areas. There are some things though that go along with business, and planning is a very big area. And I like this definition I came across when it talked about planning is bringing the future into the present so we can do something about it. And as we talk about financial planning, I want to demystify it a little bit. I did promise Alicia that I will simplify the presentation, and we will try and take away all of the technical language from it as much as possible. But the working definition for this evening is that I want to look at financial planning and define it as a process. It's a process of using an established framework that directs how money is used to accomplish goals. So there's a framework, and we will look at this, and you're using that to accomplish, goals. Let's understand a little bit about this framework. I'll use this example, and I would use the example pertaining to sugar. Also too, I gotta confess that this is the only time I use sugar in the example. I am really not a lover of it, but it works fine, especially in our country. We all know that if we want to get a cup of sugar, there's a process that has to happen. There's a factory involved in the whole process. You get the sugar cane, we know the process. But what we will be conscious of, and this is the idea that I want us to stay with, if we're looking at defining financial planning, is the idea that we are using money within a framework to accomplish a particular goal. Now, the goal here is a particular quality. There's something that we want to achieve, and we are going about it. And in this regard, as a business owner, because I'm going to look at it from a business owner's perspective, the same process will work for the homeowners as the householders, as Wayne alluded to. But in this process, and if I'm going to look at business, we recognize that somebody has an idea, and this person is putting their money to work to accomplish a particular goal. The difference between the business owner and a person that works for the business is that the person coming to work every day will look to help that business owner accomplish the goal of the business. And the responsibility, as we would know, for the business often comes back down to the business owner. But at the end of the day, the goal is pretty much the same in terms of when we are running business. And that is the whole idea of generating money. We want to generate a profit. Now, for the business owner, let me hasten to add that when you have your own business, it is more than money. It almost becomes a part of you. It almost becomes like a child. And you want to see that business grow. So part of the goal of the business owner, far be it profit is important, but I do know it is not only profit. I remember the time when, and this was back in 2007, when I opted to close the business, because at the end of the day, you gotta be dispassionate. You gotta be able to look when it comes to business and determine, does this have a future or not? And it does not matter how you feel you have to make sometimes those hard decisions. And as the recession was coming and really picking up pace in the US around 2007, I remember taking a look at the business and I recognized by some clear signs that it was probably time for me to close the business and find another avenue by which to earn. And one of the clear signs, and just a little bit, the business was, it was providing services down the islands to the hotels, and the hotels down the islands decided they will not buy any product. And it was one particular month that I made $900. My rent was $900. And thankfully, I kept dogs, and this dog had some pups. And I remember a guy came and he bought 4 of the pups from me, and that was $4,000. So that month, I made $4,900 in income. Now, one might say that, I should be concerned that my business was going to the dogs, but I assure you that was not my greater concern. My concern was that the dog didn't have any more pups. So come the following month, I was going to be in real trouble. But even at that point to decide to close the business, I still felt like, a part of me. And it was a case of sitting down and telling myself, you know what, it is your business. You would always open it up again. But I'm saying that there is a connection, and it is good, but it is also bad, because on occasion you do find that small business owner don't cut the business early enough. It is better for you to make a decision to close business than for that business to close on you, especially how your business is structured. But going back to the presentation, I'm saying that, look, at the end of the day, what we are, whether we are working for some person or whether we are having our own business where we are spearheading and looking at how we develop that, it comes back down to this. Do I have a surplus? Am I running a profit as it comes to the business? And there are going to be decisions made as to what do I do with that surplus? What do I do with the profit? And like I'm saying, going back to the whole aspect of financial planning, where there is a framework that we need to be very mindful of in terms of helping us accomplish our goals, I want to just take a quick look at what some of those areas are. And I want to hasten to add as well that in the pursuit of our goals, we must be conscious too that there are risks. So money and money decisions, yes, they touch every area of our lives. And when it comes to financial planning and the areas that I will seek to touch on, we're looking at cash flow management, debt, how we handle that, education planning, and of all the areas that in terms of when I first started in studies of financial planning, I didn't see the education planning in there, but it is really key in the whole process. The whole idea of insurance, and that aspect of it, we talk about uncovering risks, retirement, investment, estate, and tax planning. And I'm going to touch on some of those in a few minutes. It is at this point that I need to break away a little bit because I found this really nice video on YouTube. It has to deal with, let me I can discard that. So just, beg the indulgence a little bit as I go to the video. And I want to use this video more like a case study. And I want you to listen carefully. New share, got that there. Got this here. Let's hope that I have everything done right. And I'm really praying we don't get any YouTube ads coming up in this. Let me just make sure that I have the song. Everything looks all right. Let's share this, see how it goes.
Like my early teens, my mom, who is Mrs. Vilma Carter, she's now deceased, and my dad, Reginald Carter, both deceased. They all live up in their 90s, so it's only about 3 to 4 years ago that, they're gone now. So we are trying our best to carry on the business. And as growing up, I saw my parents working very hard. My dad used to work at Lower State, and he used to be painting down there for a long time, and like the big tall house I could remember, you know, mommy used to always be praying that it doesn't go up and fall because he would go up there and paint all of those, the house and things like that. And as we were growing up, you know, my mom, she always liked to, she said from a child she used to like to make little mud cakes and, you know, put them in this little thing, and they would pretend that they're serving them to their, you know, siblings and things. She always liked making cakes. So she just started in her kitchen. We were not always on this spot here. We were further down the road where you see they have the pharmacy. We were on top of that hill. But then we moved up to this location here. And my mom, when she was down there on the hill, she started just making sweet bread, and the boys on the bridge would come up on Saturday and Sunday nights and, you know, start buying these little sweet bread and cakes. And she started with just a small amount of flour, like a 25, and then pounds, and then she went to about 15, then a bag, and, you know, she started like that. She didn't even have a big oven. She would make the bread after time. The demand for the bread came more. So she would make this bread, and my dad, he had an open back red Datsun van. So they would pack all this bread on the van, and we would go to Britain's Hill to a guy named Dennis. He had a big brick oven, and they would bake the bread and bring back the bread, you know, and sell the bread. That's how she started. So as she went along, and, you know, she got her own oven and thing, and it was even there, out there, that she learned how to do like the salt bread and the turnover. And at that time, she didn't know that was, you know, a blessing in disguise. And salt bread now is our biggest seller, because they moved from a bag, and now some days they make 20 bags of, 20 100-pound bags of flour a day in the bakery. And most of it is usually be salt bread. People kind of like Carter's salt bread a lot. They always, you know, come and get the bread. And my mother was like a real person who would persevere. She never give up, always trying. And my dad would help her also, you know, as they come along, they work together. And that's how Carter's Bakery really was established in the early days, when they would, you know, be there, would just be helping around the place, helping mother, that kind of thing. My sisters as well, brother, I have one brother, and we would all be helping. And that's how we came along, because of, well, mom's vision, because she always had that vision that she would like to, you know, own her own business, and that's what she worked towards.
Good news, the family business continues today.
Let me thank you for the video. And I'm going to use the video as we talk a little bit about the whole process of the financial planning. And there's some interesting things that came out in the video. And again, I want to express thanks to Sherwood McCaskey. That is the video that he would have had in his program looking at Barbados or the community. And Marva Green, we know where her business is established. Let me look to get back to sharing the go back to the presentation. So again, let me just apologize for that interruption. And I want to focus a little bit now on the whole aspect of looking at the areas as it pertains to business. If you're looking at the business cycle, then Marva's business is not by any stretch of imagination a new startup, and she would have overcome the issues very early. We could see though within the business, being a family-owned business, it came about in a way to supplement the income of her dad. And yes, it was the dream of the mom coming up from young. But where they started, you could see that it would have been a very simple process where it was started at home, as she recount, and then the business grew. There was a need then to move on and expand. In talking to Margaret Green, right now she currently employs 50 people, and you're looking at some 35, 40 years of business being established. So in the cycle of things, this is by no means a startup or in Barbados context, this is not the micro business, even though it is a small business, but it will have the issues of a family-owned business, which as I go through this process, I will then highlight some of the areas. But in any business and starting up, when it comes to cash, and I'll deal with cash first, and you're looking at business, then there are some things that I think we know by now that will need to be put in place. I think we can all agree that business will require a certain level of planning. It is really good if you can do the market research. And market research don't necessarily mean that you are having, people come in and asking this question and give you some money at the end of the process. I've done a couple of those and I must say I enjoy them, getting the money. But in a simple form where market research, you've got an idea, you ask a couple of people, would you buy this product? And you get a feel in a sense of what you are doing. And you want to be able to do that because very often the money that you start up that business with is your own. And you want to be in a position to be relatively sure that if you are putting money out there to start a business, that you can get it back. And you can get it back with returns. So the analysis and everything, and I'm saying we know that. A couple of things that I'm going to say that we can agree on is that it needs to be record keeping. There's no way that you will start a business and you will not be keeping records of the transactions that occur in the business. It is important if you find that there is a need for growth and development within that business and you're saying, let me go to a financial institution, let me go and get a loan. And there's a good friend of mine who found himself in that position, even though he has the wherewithal to service the debt, he doesn't have the records and the institutions are not really prepared to take a chance on his say so that he has the money to do it. For those people that run business in Barbados and have a small business going, then I don't have to tell you that this climate is not exactly friendly to a small business owner. And anybody traveling this business way will definitely have a sense of what I'm talking about. But on the other hand, with so much high failures of business, then it is also important that the financial institutions themselves have certain safeguards. And the onus then become upon the person who's endeavoring to start the business, to start the record keeping, tracking the income, tracking the expenses, and we will go from there. Now, I had asked in terms of the business structures, what is in place, because this presentation will be confined to the financial planning process and not necessarily looking at all the aspects of business, whether you're looking at the sole traders, if you move in from a sole proprietorship to incorporation, except from the point of view that you're looking at how you will manage in terms of the tax process, because the sole proprietor in this regard, you will pay a higher income tax than if you can go and incorporate. But the other thing is also true that when you incorporate business, then there are some regulatory and administrative processes that you will definitely have to be a part of. If you, for example, you're going to say about register, then sole proprietor or not, you do have some timelines that you need to meet and some penalties that you will have to be very, very much aware of. So for now, when it comes to business, and I'm going to look more in terms of a general view as the person that is going out there looking to start a business, to come in and do some, earn some additional income. I'm saying that, yes, there are some things that you really want to be mindful of when it comes to planning. But the whole aspect of cash flow management from a financial planner perspective is really looking in two areas. If this was home, then it would just be what cash is coming in and how are you managing that? That is simple. But the business owner, there's another component, because it is not just the money injected into the business, but you have cash coming in from the business activity. And there are questions that you need to know for sure. If I am going out there and I'm going to buy raw material and I'm going to look at establishing and creating a product that I am going to sell, am I selling this at a profit or am I selling this at a loss? One of the things that I have found, which is a real concern, is the way a lot of small businesses now go about the process. And let me use an example as to really how it should be done. I am not a sweetbread maker. I am more, used to be more a lover of sweetbread than I was in terms of baking it. But I do know that if you are going to start a company or a business and you're going to go to be baking, then it is important that you know what a recipe, what are the ingredients that you need to put in, and you need to know the quantity, because you need to be able to provide a consistent quality, a consistent product. But the other thing is also true. If you have a recipe and you know the quantities that you are putting in, you can better price that product, because you will know how much a pound of flour will cost, how much a teaspoon of the essence will cost, how much the coconuts would cost per pound. And you are weighing everything. And what that does at the end of the day is allow you to be able to understand what is the true cost of a slice of that same bread. Now, if you're just dealing with the ingredients, let me say to that, let me hasten to add that that is not the true cost to produce the bread. That is the cost of the ingredients. The true cost to produce the bread has to take into consideration the gas to go in the vehicle to get the ingredients, the process, the gas you use to bake the process. So there are a number of factors that you need to take into consideration before you can price the product. After you've done all of those, then you can look at what is your markup, and the goal will then be in terms of making profit based on the markup. So it is important then that you're able to track the cost, track the income. So record keeping, I can't emphasize that enough. If you are going to look at business, just don't care how small that business is. The other area of business, as I go through this, this aspect of it, is when it comes to debt. For the business, if you borrow and you're incorporated, or you borrow as a business loan, then yes, you will pay a higher interest rate, but you have the tax benefit coming off of that, and that, so that is not too much of a headache. But for the individual, if you are starting a business, then maybe you want to grow that business organically. Let that business grow more on a cash basis than start to access that. If you are starting this as a side business, one of the reasons you want to be keeping records is sometimes the temptation is there that when I'm on the road, let me pick up something for the business out of the money that I work for in my other job. And then it is important to track that as a loan to the business. Yes, it is what we call owner's equity. It is your money that you put in. But if you want to be true to the business in terms of being able to really assess where this is going, it is important then to track that cost. It is a different ballgame when you're saying, let me go to a financial institution now, and I'm going to engage that financial institution to acquire debt, because there is the interest component that you have to consider. But let me also say too that in a business context, there's another kind of debt that the business owner has to sit down and make a decision on. And in business, I find that it's important you establish rules. There must be a rule in place when it comes to giving credit, letting people owe you, because you cannot, when a man owes you money, you cannot count on money that is promised to you. It is a principle in accounts. It's a principle in life. You could only count and depend upon money if it is in your account, if it is in your possession. But the money that is promised to you, you would like to get it, but that is in somebody else's account and somebody else. domain. So you really can't depend upon that. And the question is, if I am now starting business, what level of losses can I expect to get? There are many stories, and unfortunately, I too had a very hard luck story in an aspect of my business where I thought I did a good job at vetting the person. Went home by them, he invited me home. I had lunch with the family and everything good. So I knew the guy personally, but that didn't stop him from not paying an $8,000 bill. And the $8,000 wasn't too much of pain because $8,000 had to do with labor. It wasn't so much that the product, because you pay for product, you pay for product. Maybe so you can determine, even if you're going to extend credit, what aspect of your business you are prepared to put out there because you simply might not recover it. In financial planning, part of the money, and let me go back to the definition what we're looking at, we are using money in a framework in order to achieve particular goals. So the money that the business will have, the money that you will seek to generate, and the money that you will seek for funding will come from the cash that you inject, either from work or in this case from a loan, which is extended cash, but with the interest added to it. Education planning in the whole scheme of financial planning becomes important. I think when it comes to training and development, and you're working in any business, you would recognize the importance of this. But in terms of education planning, what you are doing, there are two things that I want you to be conscious that you are actually putting in place. The importance of education is a hedge against ignorance. And I don't just want to say ignorance. You need to train staff. Many a business have lost customers because the staff simply lack that ability to be friendly. As well as for your own development. If you're looking to get into other areas, then that learning is important. Going back to the video, you see where in the early stages with Velma, the Marva Carter's mom, where she went out and learned how to make the salt bread, how to make the turnovers. Now, that education was more or less an informal type education, but it helped her enable, through the educational process, she was able to build capacity. So we all know the importance of building capacity. If we're going to get a job, we're using our time and talent, and we are exchanging that talent for money. So you build capacity. The other aspect of education, though, when it comes to business, really comes down to the element of succession planning. Who will take on this business? Because it is important that if you have children coming into the whole scheme of things, and the goal is to integrate that child into the business, then it is important that you groom that child. And this is a long-term process. You groom the child into the business. Now, and also let me add to that, in planning, in the whole aspect of financial planning, we look at estate planning. One of the most difficult things that I find when I sit with even parents to look at, okay, who do you want to leave the things that you have amassed, is when the child is completely irresponsible. It makes estate planning and that passing on a headache. So in saying that, in terms of education, one of the things you want to be conscious of is not only the formal education in terms of, am I training staff? Am I training myself? Am I building capacity? But there's the other informal education. Am I grooming my children to get this process started? And there is that social dynamic, that education and the whole, and that aspect, and I'll just repeat myself this stuff a little bit. The whole aspect of education planning can help with the social risk to the business. Insurance planning, as we will all know, can address the financial risk. And it is also important in the preservation of the life of the business. In talking to Miss Green, she did indicate that when it comes to certain insurances, she will have them in place. And if you're looking at having a business and being able to sustain it, then you have the liabilities. If somebody come in by you and there's an accident, then the insurance will come in and they will cover that. So very early too in the life of a business, you want to ask yourself, what kind of business am I embarking on? And then what do I need to put in place to deal with this? There are certain risks involved, and we'll touch a little bit about that when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to the whole aspect of having medical insurance and what that can do in terms of saving money for the business. The whole aspect of retirement. And the concept of retirement is one of the things that when it comes to business owners is a whole lot different from people working. Many business owners see retirement when they can't do anymore because they enjoy the process that they are involved in. But there will come a point in time when you can no longer work. And if you've done the business right and being able to preserve the wealth that you have created, then that wealth in terms of business should be able to provide for you. I found it interesting when I listened here to Ms. Green that her parents died in their 90s. And it meant that the business that she established was able to carry them through retirement, and it was sufficient that even after their death, there's a surplus. So when it comes to planning in this regard, you can see where a business owner really can avoid certain risks that a person working can't necessarily address. And again, retirement planning is a segment that we will deal with as we look a little bit into that. The whole aspect of investment, making choices, where am I going to put my money, that my money is able to earn more money. That is the whole concept behind investment planning. And the final bit is estate planning. I don't want to go, and I hope I'm not too far past my time, but let me seek to wrap up here in terms of the whole aspect of the estate planning. Initially, you started business, and as you're going in the cycle, you look to establish business, you went through all the headaches of starting, and you get this business going. You were able to preserve the business to some extent, but the reality is at any point in time in the business cycle, death can occur. Unfortunately, unlike retirement planning, that there is an age, there's no age in estate planning. Death can occur at any time. And very early in the whole estate planning process is where you start to look at putting a will in place and establishing how you will start to have the assets divided. The thing about will planning, especially for a business owner, and you have children, who should you leave the business to? What would be the goal of the children of the particular child? And this makes a lot of, this can create a lot of issues within a family-owned business. One situation, for example, that came to light is a guy who had a business supplying vegetables to the hotel sector. And the question was, in the event of death, should he leave the business to the two children with a 50-50, so each person would have, the two of them would be partnering. The thing that the guy didn't take into consideration is that one of the children was dead set on selling the business. He really didn't want to work in the business. The heart was someplace else, while his brother was quite keen on starting up. So what is fair and equitable when it comes to the whole aspect of estate planning becomes a serious concern. Because yes, and in this case, let's say just to make the math easy, let's say the valuation of the business was $500,000. It would seem equal to leave $250,000 of value to each of the brothers. But what will happen is upon death, then brother A, the first brother who wants to sell his part of the business will ask the other brother to buy him out. Now, can the brother pay him $250,000? If he borrows that, this is an issue, because if he borrows to pay him $250,000, then it is not fair, because he has now to pay back with interest what he's borrowing against the business. But the other matter is when it comes to will planning is also true. This is occurring, this transaction about selling the business, about the business is occurring around June 2019. Reality is that even if your brother decides to take $100,000 as a buyout for the business, then what he did not know is that February 2022, you had a case where we will be on lockdown and the hotels themselves would close. So here is a situation where the business that was viable in 2019, June 2019, becomes a serious liability. And with the debt added to it, it could end up in a case where the brother that decide he will hold the business ends up losing everything and facing a $100,000 or $250,000 loan, which finds it impossible to service. So the whole aspect in financial planning, when you are sitting and you're giving careful consideration to will planning, is key to know know the children, to know the circumstance, know the environment upon which you are making substitution. So will writing is easy, but when it comes to will planning, that is a serious concern. And it is also a part and a very important part of the whole financial planning process. The aspect that I do know is that when it comes to the whole idea of will planning, you can solve a lot of problems at the writing of the will, a whole lot more that you can solve at the reading of the will. So it becomes something that we need to be very mindful of. I am going to just leave this little quote with you, that just as it is important that every parent develop and implement a plan in preparation for their child's financial future, it is just as important to prepare the child for that future. Let me take opportunity here to pause for questions, and I am hopeful that I have not gone too far past my time, Ms. Moderator.
Hi, yes, Roderick. Excellent presentation. Our first question is, what practical tips would you give to someone interested in starting a business but have no idea where to start with planning the finances for a successful and sustainable business?
All right, that is a good question. Really, really good question. And I think I can put a plug in for BCSI, because one of the things I did ask them is, do you have an accountant coming in to look at the business and the business structure? And that is why in this presentation, I opted not to go too deep into that part of it, but to focus on the planning side of it. You need to have it got to be, to my mind, you are starting something that you love. That is the first thing. It has to be something that you love, and it has to be something that other people love and that there's a need for. So with that idea there, I have something, there's a need for it, and I have enough people who is willing to exchange the product or service, then you can look at setting about doing that market research, find out how many people will be interested in the plan, find out what it takes to start up the business. And maybe let me answer that this way to make it easy. Let me tell you how I started a business with no money. I wasn't working, I lost the job, and it was a case of, how do I do business in this country without having any money? And an idea is a really important thing. The idea at the time was, how can I connect? And let me use the example. I wanted to start an IT business, which ran for 5 years, didn't have any money, didn't have any suppliers, and I needed to find clients. So what I opted to do was to go to a hotel. I know what my ability was, and I said to the person, it was only one IT person, and I said to him, you know what? I can partner with you. I can repair your equipment at a discounted price. I can supply equipment to you. And what you can do, you can train me on the software that you have. And since there's only one IT guy, I recognized he had to go on vacation. So when you go on vacation, you can call me in. What I then decided to do is I needed a supplier for equipment. So I went to a computer company. I said to them, you know what? I have clients, but I don't have a supplier. Could you be my supplier? So here is, I'm looking at the situation and I'm looking at what are the obstacles that will stop me from achieving, and I'm looking at finding solutions for those challenges. Because at the end of the day, there's a goal that I am determined to achieve. So it has to be some level of determination. Commitment is going to be there, and despite whatever product, in terms of your personality, you have to prepare and you have to persevere and you have to believe that tomorrow it is going to be better. So apart from the product, apart from the money, there is a quality that that business owner must possess. And you are going to bring that to the market after you're doing the research. Is there a need for this product? What will it take out of me to bring this product to market or provide the service? And if I'm going to do that, then, you know, do I need assistance? What obstacles do I then need to deal with? And that question is a broad question because a lot has to do with what the product and what the service is in the current market. But I do know a number of people are looking for ways in which to generate money at this point in time. So I'm saying the tenacity, the idea, do the research, look at what it will cost. And then if you don't have all the parts, going back to Miss Green, she didn't have an oven that was big enough. She was able to find who can she partner with in terms of delivering the service that she would need, that she needed to get at the point in time. I am hoping that in answering that, it made some sense.
It did. Thank you, Roderick. Thank you for that. I invite any other persons in the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to pose your questions. I have another question for you, Roderick. How do you plan enough financially to take your business into a second or third generation business like the Carter's Bakery?
I think Miss Carter's plan was like the 18. This was a plan that came together. I don't think Hannibal in the 18 ever really had a plan. He started and it unfolded. There are some, and there's no problem. In business, it is fluid. There, you have an idea and you want to pursue the idea. And if you're going to take this into the other generations, there are a couple of things. When it comes to succession planning, that is big. So, and we've had a lot of examples and people that I really do admire. Let's take, for example, Jordan Supermarket. It started with a small, basically a shop in Fix Village. And the father that started was able then to groom the son. So the son started the Jordan Supermarket and they built the massive property there, the massive supermarket there in St. James, not too far from where the first shop would have started. And then the guys have expanded. If you go into Jordan Supermarket now, you will see the children are the ones. So basically the grandchildren are running the business. A similar thing happened with Seals. Richard Seals was the father that started the business. They had David Seals taken over and then passed to the son. But what happened is that the children would have been groomed in the business from very early. So if you're looking at the succession planning, it is important that the children are involved in the process, the business process. Now, one of the things that I think is a benefit to us, even with the lockdown we have had, is a number of children are for the first time getting to see their parents at work, what mommy and daddy does. And if the parent is very conscious that what you're doing is grooming this child, then you're not going to chase away the child. The child will not be a headache and a humbug when he comes in, because when that child comes in, the child is actually observing and learning your work ethic. You're passing on that a value system, a really important value system to your children. So if you are going to have a business, it is not only having the idea and hoping that that idea will last, but it is also having the persons, grooming the persons to be able to take the business on to 2 and 3 generations. In business climate, there are business cycles, and sometimes you might find that what you are going to take from the business is money to educate the children so that they could pursue their own dreams and not necessarily run the business that you are in, because life changes. It is like the man that used to repair the old tube TV. Those days are gone. All right. So there's no there's no guarantee, but the formula really comes down to, am I grooming? Do I understand what it is to nurture and groom the successors for any business entity that I wanted to embark on?
Okay. Thank you so much. Our next question is for Wayne. The question is, how can I explain the importance of financial planning to my children and get them involved in the process? You are muted.
Yes, I was muted for quite a long time. So I'll give an example. When it comes to higher education, here's what some of my clients and our parents have done. They've made it a habit to know who their children's teachers are. These are secondary school children. So they check up on their children by virtue of having a good rapport with their teachers. And this is what they say to their children. So understand how your future education will work. Your father and I are going to make it financially possible, as far as we can, for you to go off to university. You have to do your part as well. There are scholarships available. So you do your part, which allows you to get the education that you want, which allows you to get the job that you want, and then therefore the life that you want. Your father and I will make it possible, as far as we can, to make it financially possible to go that far. So children, especially teenagers, understand that money doesn't grow on trees. It has to come from somewhere, and the finite amount of it. So having these discussions, being realistic about money, helps them to understand where money comes from, how it's used, and how their actions can contribute to their financial success.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you so much, Roderick, as well. We are now bringing this evening's proceedings to an end. But before you guys go, I want to invite you to our next session, part 2. Next Monday, 6:30, same place, same time. It will be on retirement planning. That's the hot topic right now. So invite your friends, invite your colleagues, your family, everybody to this session, because it will be insightful and educational. And as I said, it's a topic that everybody has now on the tip of their tongues. So thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to seeing you guys here again next week, along with the persons that you do invite. Thank you.